Yo, Still Mills, what's the deal, man? We back, heading to pick up my daughter, man. This little boy of mine, I can't get shit done with this little nigga, man. He just will not stay asleep. All of a sudden, he too good to sleep in the bassinet in the room, man. I can't do nothing. Shit pissing me off. But Pete Gang, man, I want to talk about something, man. We got this big, it's a pretty, it's a night. We got a pretty big fight coming up this weekend, man. I don't think much of Ryan Garcia, but he garners a lot of attention, at least more than the average boxer garners in today, by today's standards. Due to his visibility on TikTok and all that, man. So we got a fight with him and Mario Barrios coming up this weekend, but keeps it a stack. That's not even really a fight that I'm really excited about because I don't think he's deserving of that title shot that he's getting. And I think there's just better fighters and more deserving champions than that of a Mario Barrios. So the first fight I want to speak about going into this fight is Gary Antuan Russell versus Andy Hiroka, man. I think this is going to be an intriguing fight, man. One thing I've noticed about Gary Antuan, let's look at Andy Hiroka first, man. Andy Hiroka, he puts me kind of in the mind, and it's not just because they Japanese. Even, Andy is a black Japanese. It's not just because he's Japanese. But he puts me in the mind frame of like a Junto Nakatani, where they're kind of, wiry and, longer for the division. So, they punch a little bit wider. Their hooks aren't as tight and compact as the smaller fighters or the shorter fighters in the division. And they just, they're wiry, man. And because, they can keep you at the edge of their shots that, they can keep you bent to their will as far as, the range of, the ring coverage and the amount of range that they can put on a single shot. So they're able to get away with certain shit that most fighters can't get away with. Hence, him backing up, he doesn't just back up in a straight line. So let me not say that, but his chin is high in the air. And his hands are out, more so extended where it's not, he's not holding the phone. But he does this on the retreat. But he's fast enough on his feet to where, not fast enough. He's good enough on his feet to where and his legs are so long that, he can spin out and force you to reset. And him forcing you to reset, isn't the same as you being forced to reset in front of somebody that's your height. This dude he's a rangy dude. He's a rangy dude. But that's one deficiency that I do see in his game. Just him keeping his chin high up in the air, and his guard is kind of compromised when he, just on the back, him backing up. If you're fast enough on your feet to close distance, even when he's spinning out, you can punish him. If you're fast enough on your feet to do it, though. And a lot of people just aren't as fast on their feet as other motherfuckers, man. So I don't know if Gary Antuan Russell is someone who will be able to capitalize on that. But I do think he is pretty fast on his feet. But the thing is with me that's blowing me is we've seen Gary Antuan Russell with someone who is the same stature, the same fighting identity as that of Andy Hiroka. And that was Alberto Puello. Now, Alberto Puello is a lot more seasoned and more proven than Andy Hiroka. I mean, he's been in there with Gary Antuan Russell. He just got out of there with goddamn Subriel Matias, where he lost his belt. Before that, he was in there with Sandor Martin. And he didn't look as domineering in front of Sandor Martin as he was in front of Gary Antuan Russell. He didn't, he got, he clear as day lost. He clear as day won against Gary Antuan Russell. It was a robbery in front of Sandor Martin, or at least a lot of people believe it was a robbery. And Alberto Puello may be a little bit better in the pocket and the exchanges than that of Andy Hiroka, but I think Andy Hiroka is a little bit more bouncy on his toes, where I think he controls distance a little bit better than Alberto Puello. Andy Hiroka is a lot more in and out, and he's on his toes. Puello is kind of just taking half steps back. He's not planted, but he's grounded. He's not as bouncy. He's not up and down. He's grounded. He's taking half steps back. Does he fight on his toes? Yes, you have to as a back foot fighter. What I'm saying is, Andy Hiroka is bouncy. He's bouncing on his toes in and out. you don't get that same look from a Alberto Puello, even though he's fighting on his toes technically as well. It's, you know, just when you on your toes bouncing like that, you're a little bit more, you know, you're a lot more reactionary and, you know, responsive than that of somebody who fights on the balls of their feet because they're fighting from the outside. All fighters are gonna fight on their toes. All fighters fight like that, but it's just, you know, the dynamic is just a little bit more. It's just a little different between the, you know, between the two of them, man. But I think I do think Gary Russell was able to close distance a lot better, and when he's able to close distance a lot better in front of Alberto Puello, and even Rayo. You know, now the difference between them, you know, those three fighters, Rayo, Puello, and Hiroka, is that's not necessarily Valenzuela's fighting identity. You know, he's a dude who kind of likes to fight in the pocket. So, and he didn't start fighting like that till he fought Cruz. And Cruz, being as limited as he is and a lot smaller than Rayo, he wasn't able to capitalize. He wasn't, you know, his level of pressure just wasn't enough to overcome that of over Rayo. Gary Antuan Russell is faster on his feet. He's a lot better with his head movement. His hands are faster. He's sharper counter puncher, all that shit. So where he was able to make, do that real well in front of, come on, man, my nigga, go. Where he was able to do that real well in front of, Valenzuela, he wasn't able to do that in front of the likes of Alberto Puello, because I think Alberto Puello is just a bit of a step above, Valenzuela. That's just that's just how I personally feel about it, man. I know, I'm excited about the fight. It's hard for me to pick who I have winning the fight. I'll say this. If I have to pick, I'm going to have to pick Gary Antuan Russell, because he's the more seasoned, he's the more seasoned between the two of them. But Andy Hiroka has been in there with some, he's been in, Jin Sasaki I think that's a good game, tough opponent. I think it's the type of opponent you need in certain circumstances. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he could somewhat prep you for that of a Gary Antuan Russell standing in front of fighting Jin Sasaki. He could, hold on, this damn kid, he could fight you in the, it's a benefit to fighting Jin Sasaki, you know what I'm saying? But he could prep you for fighting that of a Gary Antuan Russell, but it's just certain, that's just because of, the durability and him coming straight down the pipe to get at you. Gary Antuan Russell is a little bit more, no. Gary Antuan Russell is a lot more nuanced than that of Jin Sasaki. But he is a known name. He's a known name, and we just all know him for getting, outlined in chalk by Brian Norman Jr. as a welterweight. But you also have Barroso. He went in there and he knocked him out in 9 rounds. You dig? So he's compiling a nice little resume, and really good at, he's performed well in front of acid tests like Ishmael, because we know Ishmael should be a champion right now, or he should have been a champion. Rolly, he was fucking Rolly up. We know that. And for him to go in there and do what he did to him when Rolly couldn't do it, I think that's telling on behalf of Andy Hiroka. So who I have winning this fight, I'm not so sure. I think if Hiroka had a better fighter in front of him, like who would I even put? I can't even think of who I would put in there. Like, I don't. Do I want to say Ramesses Bartholomew, or maybe someone of that magnitude, or someone of the magnitude before he moved up in Jose Ramirez? Maybe someone of that magnitude and he went in there and he was able to get step on homeboy. Yeah, all right, bet. All right, cool. Now I'd be a lot more confident saying that he could win that, or that he would win that fight in front of a Gary Antuan Russell, because he has the same, just the same stature and the same fighting identity as that of a Alberto Puello. And Alberto Puello was, wilding on Gary Antuan Russell. But I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna have to go with Gary Antuan Russell in this fight, but I'm not entirely sure. I think he's the sharper puncher. He's the more compact puncher. It's just, I think he's a little bit more technically proficient when it comes to, punching technique. I think his punches are tighter and more compact. But the thing is, it's like with Alberto Puello as well. They punch wide. Junto Nakatani as well. He punches wide. I don't just when you're in there with smaller fighters, your shots are gonna look like you are. It's so, the shots are so wide because you're in there with a dude that's so much smaller than you, and you got a lot more, length on your wingspan. So it looks a little bit like, dag, man, why is it taking forever for the shot to get to the target, man? Like, these dudes don't punch off the chin. The shot doesn't come right off of the chin or the cheekbone with these dudes, man. They come in straight. It's like it. If y'all played the game Undisputed, when you set up the body shot with the backhand, look at all the excess motions that they go through to get that shot off. That's the hardest shot to get off in the game because it's just so many animations that they go through to land, to throw the shot. That's how it seems when you watch Alberto Puello and Andy Hiroka and Junto Nakatani throw these shots. Even though I think Junto Nakatani is a bit more sharper with his hooks and his uppercuts than they are. I think they're a little bit more compact than they are, but they do punch a little wide. They punch wide. They honestly do, but there's other qualities that come with their game as well. Like I like how Andy Hiroka, I like how he moves. I do. I like how he moves. I like how he's not, he doesn't back up in a straight line, man. Lennox Lewis had that bad where he would back up in a straight line because he was so much longer than everybody. He could just back up in a straight line with his hands out like that, extended, arms extended to protect him. So, because you don't know if my arm extended is a shot that's coming out or if it's a deflection for whatever shots it is you're throwing at me. But that muffles somebody's offense when they got their arms extended like that. But when he went in there and he fought Klitschko, he was getting punished for that. Same with Jared Anderson, man. So that shit works all the way up until it doesn't. When you got somebody who can navigate around that shit, like what we seen with Charles Martin going in there with Jared Anderson. It was like, if he keeps doing that shit, when he fights somebody who's not as past it and is a lot sharper than Charles Martin, it's going to be a bad day. That's why I picked Martin Bacoli to beat this nigga. I'm like, he's going to beat him, dog. Like, it's just, nah, bro. So that works all the way up until it doesn't. And I think Gary Antuan Russell may be fast enough on his feet to where when Andy Hiroka gets a shot off and he's able to pivot out. Hold up, this fucking kid. And he's able to pivot out and force Gary Antuan Russell to reset. He's fast enough on his feet to where I think he could, reset with him and get right back into his chest and make, and do damage. So I think I'm gonna go with Gary Antuan Russell in this fight, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm a little bit more comfortable picking Gary Antuan Russell because he's more seasoned and he's a champion. He's more seasoned and he's a champion, but he fought a dude with the same fighting identity and same stature as Andy Hiroka, and that didn't go to that didn't bode too well in his favor in front of Alberto Puello. But because Alberto Puello was a champion when they fought, or he was a champion, and he took a belt from a champion. He has multiple champions under his belt as just the experience, 1-1 against a champion. So Andy hasn't fought the champion yet. And so I'm gonna lean towards Gary Antuan Russell in this matchup, man. But I'm not entirely sure. So, but nonetheless, this fight is a lot more exciting than that of a Mario Barrios versus Ryan Garcia, because Ryan Garcia does not deserve a title shot. He does not deserve a title shot, and I think there's better options and better fighters more fitting of a champion, of occupying a belt than a fucking Mario Barrios. So I'm not too excited about this fight, but I'll watch it. I ain't paying for it. I'm gonna watch it though. I'll be tuning in. So may the best man win. I would love to see Andy Hiroka do his thing. I would. I'm gonna just enjoy the fight because I think that I don't think the world of Gary Antuan Russell, but he's a good fighter, definitely. But I think Andy Hiroka is a good fighter as well. So may the best man win. I'm tuning in. I'm tapped in. Oh, this kid. See what I'm saying? We in the car seat driving around doing circles so he can stop crying, and he gonna start crying even though we driving around waiting for my daughter to get out. Just this kid is a trip, boy. I swear to everything. But that's how I'm feeling about it, man. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, it is what it is. I've been wrong before as well as everybody else. I'm human. So we'll know for sure if I'm right or wrong come Saturday. I'll tap back in with y'all later, y'all. Deuces.